Babe Ruth called his shot in 1932. Jackie Robinson stole home in 1955. Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run in 1974. Barry Bonds hit his 756th home run in 2007. And Aaron Judge broke the AL home run record in 2022. Throughout all these different eras, these moments share two important, never-changing aspects. Within baseball history lies a story rarely told: the evolution of the game's most fundamental pieces, the bat and the ball. They are arguably the most important factors in an offensive performance, besides, of course, player performance. But before we get to the content, if you've been enjoying the videos I put out, please leave a like and subscribe. I do this full time, and your support on the channel really helps me to be able to continue to put out consistent content for all of you. And now that that's out of the way, let's dive right into it. Today, we're going on a journey through time, from baseball's humble beginnings to the modern scientific revolution that has transformed baseball. Baseball wasn't born fully formed. It evolved through experimentation and a surprising amount of chaos. And I don't know about you guys, but chaos is something I definitely don't want to deal with. So if you're someone who's into sports betting and you're looking to actually turn a profit and not deal with all the chaos of changing lines and knowing if a line is good or bad, meet OddsJam. They're the ultimate tool for serious data-driven bettors. OddsJam scans 260 plus sports books in real time to find odds discrepancies, and that's where the magic happens. With their arbitrage tool, you can bet both sides of a game and lock in guaranteed profit no matter who wins. It's not a trick, it's math and it works. But that's just the start. OddsJam also gives you a positive EV tool to find plus EV bets daily, a built-in bet tracker to monitor your performance, and full transparency on your edge. Whether you're just starting or you've been betting for years, this platform helps you bet smarter, not riskier. And now you can try it free for 7 days. And if you love it, use code UNI for 35% off your first month or year. OddsJam turns betting into a long-term strategy, not just a gamble. So go to oddsjam.com, use code UNI, and start stacking profits today. But now let's take it back to the beginning days of baseball. In the 1840s, when baseball was first organized into something that resembles the modern game, players made their own bats from whatever wood was available. There were no standard sizes. Some players swung massive clubs nearly 3.5 feet long and weighing over 50 ounces. Others preferred shorter, more lightweight bats. As former baseball player Doc Adams, who played baseball in the mid-1800s, put it, the bats had to be turned under my personal supervision, the workman stopping occasionally for me to determine when the right diameter and taper was secure. I was often required to try 3 or 4 turners to find one with suitable wood, or one willing to do the work. In fact, baseball playing for the first 6 or 7 years of its existence was the pursuit of pleasures under difficulties. The balls themselves were equally ancient. Instead of being standardized like in today's MLB, they were handmade by the players. In fact, Doc Adams even said, for 6 or 7 years, I made all the balls myself, not only for our club, but also for other clubs when they were organized. I went all over New York to find someone who would undertake this work, but no one could be induced to try it for love or money. In fact, baseballs weren't standardized until the 1870s when Albert Spalding began mass producing them. But these early balls, they were quote unquote dead compared to modern baseballs. They absorbed impact rather than rebounding with energy, making home runs more rare and placing a premium on speed, back control, and strategy rather than power. Plus, it also didn't help that some ballparks just didn't have fences. Consider the stats in 1876, the first year of the National League. The league-leading Chicago White Stockings hit just 8 home runs as a team the entire season. But that doesn't mean these players couldn't hit for extra bases. Take, for example, Ross Barnes, who led the NL slugging .590 while leading the league in doubles and triples. The game was just played entirely on the ground, with players choking up on their heavy bats and using what we would now call a slap approach to hitting. The goal wasn't to drive the ball with power, but to place it strategically where fielders weren't positioned. Now, by the 1890s, the first commercial bat manufacturers came around, led by companies like Hillerich and Bradsby, makers of the iconic Louisville Slugger. And the legend is that the company's baseball journey began when professional player Pete Browning broke his bat during a game in 1884. court. John Bud Hillerich, the son of the woodworking shop's owner, invited Browning to the shop and crafted him a custom replacement. Browning then went on to go 3 for 3 the next day, and word of the quality bat spread quickly amongst players. It's also worth noting that during this era, bats were primarily made from wagon tongue wood, the same wood used for wagon wheels. This dense, sturdy wood could withstand the impact of the ball, but offered little flexibility or whip. By the 1930s, ash became the preferred material, offering a better combination of strength and more give. And while we typically view baseball's change over time through the lens of famous players and moments, it's really these fundamental changes in equipment that began shaping different playing styles and strategies that would eventually transform the game. In 1910, the cork-centered baseball was introduced, replacing the rubber core that was used previously. While this did make the ball slightly more responsive, the real ball revolution was still to come. The year 1920 marks perhaps the most significant turning point in baseball's equipment history, and by extension, in how the game itself was played. Following the tragic death of Ray Chapman, who was struck in the head by a pitch in August 1920, baseball made a major change. Umpires began replacing balls as soon as they became dirty. Previously, a single ball might be used for multiple innings, becoming darker and harder to see as the game progressed. And this was mainly to counter the notorious spitball. The spitball was a pitch where the pitcher could literally spit on the ball in order to increase movement and unpredictability in the pitch. But there was another, less publicized change that had an even bigger effect. Manufacturers began using Australian wool yarn in the ball's construction, creating a tighter, more responsive core that traveled further when hit. And the statistical impact was immediate. In 1919, the entire American League hit just 240 home runs combined. In 1921, that number jumped to 477, a near 100% increase. And by 1930, the entire MLB total had soared to 1,786. Babe Ruth, whose powerful swing was perfectly suited to this new era, revolutionized the game by showing that home runs could be a strategic offensive weapon rather than a rarity. In 1920, Babe Ruth hit 54 home runs. That's 35 more home runs than any other player that year. In a way, this was the beginning of a massive change. The beginning of when the game began its long evolution towards the 3 true outcomes: home runs, walks, and strikeouts, the definition of modern baseball. According to the Associated Press, Ruth himself used a massive 42-ounce bat made from premium ash wood. A bat like this, with a thick handle and barrel, allowed him to generate incredible power, but also required major strength to control. Modern analysis of Ruth's bat speed is estimated to be about 75 miles per hour, which is above average in terms of modern MLB bat speed. In this same era, bat manufacturers became even more integrated with the sport. Louisville Slugger established its famous brand by securing endorsement deals with star players and creating signature models that amateur players could purchase. The most popular model of the era was the Ty Cobb bat, featuring a thin handle and a gradual taper to a medium-sized barrel, reflecting Cobb's focus on bat control rather than pure power. Then came Ted Williams, whose career began in the late 1930s, and he brought science to bat selection. Williams insisted on customizing his bats in every way possible. He would literally sit for hours with the people who made his bats in order to make them in his specific style. Now, then came World War II, and that created an interesting equipment chapter as well. With rubber being rationed for the war effort, baseball was facing a rubber shortage. In fact, due to the war, baseball faced many restrictions. For example, many players had to go to war. The teams couldn't travel as much due to gasoline rationing, and the way rubber was used in baseballs had to drastically change. The league would adapt through the war years and make it through to peacetime. Then the post-war boom brought increased scientific attention to baseball's equipment, alongside growing television coverage that raised fan awareness of the game's nuances. Fast forward to 1974, a significant change occurred when cowhide replaced horsehide for baseball covers. This shift wasn't just a material choice. Cowhide offered more consistent texture and better durability. This change happened together with the small increase in offense. For example, let's just look at Mike Schmidt, who in 1974 took the next step from a promising rookie to the best third baseman in the league, smashing an NL-leading 36 home runs, double the amount of home runs he hit in the last season. Or let's look at Joe Rudi, a player who hit more home runs and doubles in 1974 than he ever did in the rest of his career. But for now, let's turn the clock back a decade or so to the 1960s, specifically back to 1968, aka the infamous year of the pitcher. Bob Gibson's 1.12 ERA and Denny McLain's 31-win season highlighted a season where the collective effective MLB batting average plummeted to 237. In response, MLB lowered the pitching mound from 15 inches to 10 inches in 1969 and instructed umpires to enforce a smaller strike zone. This would mark the final ever time MLB changed the height of the mound, and these changes did improve the game. Looking at the stats, MLB wide batting average jumped from 237 in 1968 to 254 in 1970, and home runs increased by over 1,400. But the real revolution in bat technology began in 1970, when bats began to be designed in order to hit the ball out of the park. Take, for example, Hank Aaron's bat made by Louisville Slugger in 1975. The bat was 35 inches, but more importantly, cupped out the top side of the bat in order to create a larger barrel. In a wild and short-lived stunt, the 1970s also made way for a new type of ball, an orange baseball. During spring training of 1973, MLB used quote-unquote alert orange balls, which were designed in order to increase offense. The logic was that orange stood out more than white, which would help hitters identify the ball easier, which would result in more offense. But at the end of spring training, it was determined that the balls didn't create more offense, and the idea was scrapped altogether. Then the 1980s marked the beginning of baseball's entry into the high-tech era of equipment development, a period when traditional craftsmanship increasingly gave way to scientific precision and material innovation. Maple bats made their first appearance in professional baseball during this decade, though they wouldn't become widespread until a decade later. These bats offered greater hardness than traditional ash and potentially allowing for increased exit velocity when perfectly struck. However, their tendency to shatter completely rather than merely crack, as ash does, would eventually become a safety concern for the league. The most dramatic equipment storyline of the 1980s was the rabbit ball controversy of 1987, when home run totals suddenly spiked out of nowhere across baseball. MLB-wide, players hit 4,458 home runs in 1987, a 645 increase over the home run total in 1986. Players like Wade Boggs, normally a singles hitter who had never hit more than 8 home runs in a season, suddenly hit 24 homers. And while MLB officials denied making any changes to the baseball, independent testing suggested subtle differences in the ball's bounciness. Fans have speculated that the court tension had been altered, but this was never officially confirmed. Then, in 1992, the Rawlings Bat Company introduced the Big Stick, famously used by Eddie Murray. This bat had a substantially larger barrel than traditional models while maintaining similar weight. This provided a larger sweet spot and more forgiving contact zone. On top of this, Sam Holman, a Canadian carpenter, founded the original Maple Bat Corporation in 1996 and began supplying maple bats to major leaguers. Barry Bonds famously switched to Holman's Sam Bat in 99, and by 2001, when he hit a record 73 home runs in a single season, dozens of players had made the switch to maple as well. By the mid-2010s, players like Dustin Pedroia, Chase Utley, Troy Tulowitzki, and Miguel Cabrera all used maple bats. The appeal was simple. Laboratory and real game evidence suggested that perfectly struck balls traveled further off of maple than ash. Sports scientists estimated the difference at 3 to 5 feet on a well-hit ball, and that's a margin that could turn a warning track flyout into a home run. But then in 2008, the dramatic shattering of maple bats became a safety issue when several serious incidences occurred, including a broken bat that severely injured Pittsburgh Pirates coach Don Long. So in response, MLB implemented new maple bat regulations requiring higher density wood and different grain orientation to reduce those dramatic bat breaks. Now, throughout this time, the MLB ball had largely stayed the same throughout all these eras, until finally in the 2000s, it became more standardized due to the rising use of humidifiers. As baseball entered the analytics revolution of the 2010s, equipment technology underwent its own evolution, becoming even more personalized and technologically advanced than ever before. For example, many teams put trackers in the bat. Teams allowed players to bend the knob of the bat, and finally allowed players to change the barrel of the bat as well. But then it would seem everything would change in 2011. MLB mandated a new, more intense certification process for bat manufacturers after a ton of dangerous broken bat incidences. The new standards specified minimum wood density requirements and proper grain orientation. During this period, advanced technologies like exit velocity and launch angle measurements provided by systems such as StatCast gave players incredible feedback on their equipment choices. Consider this, as players became more aware of the specific launch characteristics that produced ideal results, they also began customizing their bats more precisely than ever before. We didn't know it yet, but some players now ordered bats with weight distributions calibrated to the 1/10 of an ounce, handle thickness measured to the millimeter, and barrel profiles designed to match their specific swing paths. This era also renewed controversy around the baseball itself. After home run totals reached historic highs in 2017 and continued rising through 2019, independent research confirmed what many had suspected. The baseball itself had changed. Studies commissioned by MLB and conducted by independent researchers found baseballs were being made inconsistently, allowing the ball to travel further when hit with the same force. However, it is important to remember one thing: MLB had purchased Rawlings, the official baseball manufacturer, in 2018, giving the league direct control over ball production for the first time. After that, the pandemic-shortened 2020 season brought another equipment milestone: the universal adoption of humidors for baseball storage. Initially implemented in Colorado to counteract the effects of high altitude on ball flight, humidors, which maintain baseball's temperature at 70 degrees Fahrenheit and 50% relative humidity, were mandated for all 30 MLB stadiums by 2022. This standardization was an attempt to reduce difference in ball performance across different climate conditions. The 2021 and 2022 seasons saw yet another baseball controversy, as offensive numbers suddenly dropped after years of record home run totals. Because of this, many fans have speculated that MLB actually implemented two different baseballs during this period. One similar to the juiced balls of 2017 to 2019, and another with a lighter, less dense core that didn't travel as far when struck. And that brings us to the latest baseball equipment revolution, one still unfolding before our eyes. In spring training of 2025, it seemed like everyone could only talk about one thing, because it was revealed the New York Yankees were using new bats called torpedo bats. In simple terms, all this bat really does is create a larger barrel by removing wood from the end of the bat and putting it in the barrel. And this is all people could talk about, especially when you consider Jazz Chisholm and Anthony Volpe both completely raked to begin the 2025 season. Now, this invention seemed like it was about to change baseball forever, and for a second, it really looked like everyone would be using torpedo bats in the next couple years. But the truth is, torpedo bats were not even new to 2025. For starters, Giancarlo Stanton was using this bat as far back as the 2024 playoffs. Playoffs, mind you, he was so clutch and was hitting clutch home runs after clutch home run. But it goes even deeper than that. Apparently, players were already using the torpedo bat in 2023, and the design itself can be traced back as far as the 1990s. The only reason it's being popularized now is due to the coverage of the barrel of the bat, plus the Yankees' absolutely historic start to the season in the series against the Brewers. While it would be easy to say everybody should use torpedo bats, it's really not that simple. Take, for example, Aaron Judge, a player who literally holds the AL home run record and is batting over 400 to start the 25 season. He refuses to switch to the torpedo bat. His logic is, why change what got me 62 home runs in a season? And honestly, that's a pretty valid point. Or what about Alex Bregman, the $40 million man for Boston? Well, he flirted with using the bat on Instagram before opting not to use it in the game. The point being made here is that the torpedo bat isn't for everybody. Alex Cora, manager of the Red Sox, even said the team was experimenting with these types of bats in spring training before deciding to not use them. Basically, what works for player A may not work for player B. So as we've seen, the story of baseball's bats and balls is far more than just a cute story through time. It's the hidden story that helps explain how and why the game itself has transformed across generations. The dead balls and heavy wagon tongue bats of the 1800s created a game of strategy, speed, and contact. The livelier balls and specialized bats of the 1920s brought in the power era, forever changing how we value different baseball skills. And now, as torpedo bats make their mark on the 2025 season, we find ourselves at another point in this long evolution. Will these new designs fundamentally change the game yet again? Will they prompt new regulations or inspire even more radical changes? Or are they just a flash in the pan? What do you think? Has baseball's equipment evolution improved the game by allowing players to showcase their skill and power? Or has something essential been lost as technology increasingly influences performance? Has the balance between pitcher and hitter been fundamentally altered by these changes? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hard-hitting baseball analysis. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.